How you doing, guys? BC90 here with the next video in my Poise showcase series, and today we're finally going to be taking a look at the Yhorm's Great Machete. Now I've got a dual wielding setup here with the Millwood battle axe in the left hand, and just looking at the Yhorm's Great Machete first, we'll go into my equipment page there. It's at +5, it gets an A scaling in strength, and you need 38 strength there and 10 dexterity to wield it. Now at 50 strength, which is, this is pretty much the same setup I had in my last video with the Yhorm Ultra Greatsword. So now this series is going to be focusing on strength and vitality setups. So with the Yhorm's Great Machete, at 50 strength, you're looking at 666 AR, which is pretty good, as this thing hits pretty hard. It does have a pretty good, stagger and stun lock capability. And when you do have those poise breakpoints behind you, once you survive that first hit, you'll get your 2 to 3 hits in. You can usually kill your opponent after 3 hits, and even with 2 solid ones, that's almost, 2/3 of their life bar gone. Now, when you use the weapon art, two-handed, this weapon AR goes up to 732. So, you'll normally be playing with the weapon art on just to get that extra damage, but I probably won't be using the R2 much in PvP, that one there. So just like the Great Club, the weapon art here changes the R2, and I'm not a big fan of this one, to be honest. So I probably won't be using that one much. Now going back over to my equipment page there, I've got 2 Blessed Cestus, one in each hand, just like my last setup. And they're both blessed, so they stack here with my Sun Princess ring. So in the event we do need a bit of HP regen to, get a bit of HP to be able to come out on top with the next trade, we do have the option here to play the neutral game in order to be able to HP regen effectively. Now, as for the dual wielding setup, I think the Millwood battle axe is excellent, especially for a strength poise build. Not really so much for the poise, but for the fact that if you infuse it with heavy, I've got it at +9 here. It gets an A scaling in strength, and when you actually have a look at its damage there, at 50 strength, it does 452 damage there at +9, which is pretty awesome for a one-handed axe. And you're really using this to whiff punish, to stay in your opponent's faces, especially those passive and reactive players, to get in their face and roll catch as well, which is excellent. You can combo it up with the Yhorm's Great Machete as well. And on top of that, it's good at chasing people down. A lot of people that get used to the Yhorm's Great Machete attacks are quite difficult to finish off at the end of a match, so you probably just pull out that Millwood battle axe there to finish them off. Now we'll go straight into some PvP here, guys, so we can take a look at the Yhorm's Great Machete. Now a good tactic I like to use is to open just with my Yhorm's Great Machete two-handed and not with the battle axe in hand. That way people don't really expect it. It's the same sort of tactic I used in one of my previous videos with the Great Club and the Lothric Knight Sword, mainly because if you have that weapon there hidden away from your opponent, you can whip it out at the last moment and surprise them, catch them off guard, which is a lot more effective, I think, in my opinion, than just opening with the dual wielding setup there. So alright, here we go. Getting a little bit careless there. Alright, so here's a situation where now we're going to play the neutral game a little bit. See if he notices what we're trying to do here. Because we're going to get some HP regen back, hopefully, here, if I start to time my dodges effectively. That's basically the dodge we have to look out for, because that weapon art is super annoying. And now this guy's going to spend his time trying to catch us, and if we can just effectively use the neutral game to our advantage here for a little bit, we'll try to come out on top here. We'll try to come out on top. He's obviously got us on the defensive here, and it's one of those situations where you can really sort of practice your neutral game. Okay, so he switched over again. See, we're gonna get better at dodging that fucking thing. So we are getting better at dodging that attack. You know, sometimes I just forget that that weapon has that ability, to be honest. So we just have to be careful we don't get hit by that. Probably trying to get some distance there to do that, yep, that light beam. I forget what the actual thing is called. Alright, so he's pulled out the, what is that, the Ethereal Oak Shield. So he himself is, he's getting some HP regen as well. So yeah, I don't think anyone's going to win this match here, guys. It was really one for neutral game. So basically, unfortunately with the arena, obviously you only have 1 minute and 30 seconds to duel, to fight someone. So I mean, in those situations where, you know, obviously I didn't have the advantage in the beginning of the match and I'm playing the neutral game and your opponent is playing the neutral game themselves, very passive and reactive playstyle, it's going to usually end up in a draw. And for us, it's basically because we do need to get in that neutral game when we're down on HP, because otherwise, I mean, even though we can trade with the Poise breakpoints behind us, there's no point in doing so because we're still going to die in the outcome. So you need to really get good at, you know, using that neutral game to your advantage in order to get some HP back, and then coming out on top, hopefully. But in those situations, obviously, there's not enough time, especially if your opponent is also playing a similar playstyle. So I mean, it's a lot more interesting in Pontiffs, to be honest, because there isn't that pressure of a time limit, and on top of that, I think at Pontiffs people are a little bit less concerned about this, you know, medals, I guess, even though they mean nothing. They have no bearing on anything. I guess some people get worried about the medals and, you know, would rather bait the timer or something like that as well. Not just playing the neutral game for a tactical advantage, but even just baiting the timer. So yeah, I mean, one thing I did advocate in my previous video is mastering that neutral game when you do need HP regen. So, you know, if you need to do it, you need to do it. That's basically it, because it's going to help you, you know, come out on top with your trades, which is the basis of how these particular setups work. Alright, so we've got a great hammer. So we know we can't trade against this guy, so we're going to have to try and outplay him here. See how we go. Timed that pretty poorly on my part. It's all about timing here, guys. So you notice how there, because we're not at the breakpoint we need to be using a Greataxe, we can't trade with a Great Hammer. Something I've advocated, and it just shows you, you know, that these breakpoints are accurate. That if you want to be taking advantage of hyper armor trading, you do need to actually take these breakpoints into consideration, because they do work, guys. So with Great Hammers, we're always going to have a difficulty unless we are obviously, you know, optimized to be able to trade against them. But I mean, here he's switched up to a what's it called? Yeah, butcher knife there. Pretty cool match here. we'll see if we can get a little bit more HP back here, guys. Gotcha. So in those situations where you do come up against a Great Hammer, and it's pretty good that we did come up against a Great Hammer because I haven't been able to showcase that before. If you're using a Greataxe or an Ultra Greatsword and you're aiming on the Poise breakpoint system to be behind you in order to be able to consecutively hyper armor trade, against Great Hammers using, you know, Greataxes and Ultra Greatswords, you need a base Poise of 52. Now I highlighted a build that actually did that with the Black Knight Greatsword. If you want to check that out, you pretty much need almost full Havels and a Wolf Rings +2. So I really think that you're better off just using, you know, different tactics against Great Hammers when you're not optimized to fight against them. Mainly just hitting them in between their own attacks, like you saw there, or having a different weapon there, like a sidearm or something, just to, you know, hit them in their wind up, or hit and run against them, you know, in between their attacks. That way you avoid their active frames, because they're going to come out on top, because, you know, Great Hammers have higher hyper armor, and they also require less breakpoints to be effective in terms of Poise. They're actually the easiest weapon class to optimize for using Poise. So yeah, just keep that in mind, guys. That when you use a Greataxe, when you use a Great Hammer, or a not a Great Hammer, sorry, when you use a Greataxe or a Ultra Greatsword, you're gonna have trouble against Great Hammers if you want to trade against them. So you're gonna have to use other tactics to beat them. Okay, so we've got a don't know what weapon he's using there, this guy, but you know. Gotta be very careful here. This guy's got a pretty good fast weapon setup where he's not actually relying on trades or anything like that. He's being very passive and reactive, and these are the most difficult opponents that you will fight using these builds, to be completely honest. Because these guys are pretty quick, and it's difficult to come out on top against these guys when they have such a reactive playstyle. Okay, watch out for that washing pole poke. Here we go. Gotta be very careful here, guys. Gotcha! Right at the match finish. Oh, that was epic. Honestly, I love coming out on top against those super passive reactive guys like that, because they are one of the most difficult playstyles to beat using a Poise build, to be honest. Because those guys, obviously, they're not going to go in for trades. They know they can't trade against you because, you know, as soon as you get into your active frames, you're going to hit them for 2 hits at least, which is almost, you know, all of their life bar. So that sort of playstyle is very difficult to fight against, especially when they have a weapon like the washing pole that's really good at hit and run tactics. So, you know, that was a pretty good match there, guys. You know, I enjoyed that. You really have to learn how to be able to dodge those running pokes and react appropriately. And to be honest, even though I didn't use the Millwood battle axe that much there, just having it there is just increases your effectiveness, to be honest, because your opponent knows you have that there to sort of roll catch them, whiff punish them, and sort of like counter attack after they try and hit and run. So you can hit and run yourself using a dual wielding setup. You know what I mean? You pretty much can do that yourself. And they don't they could expect it, but you know, they probably lose sight of the fact that, you know, you have so much different movesets available. I mean, you can two-hand the battle axe, you can two-hand the Yhorm's Great Machete, you can use them in each hand. You have such a versatility for comboing up, to be honest, that it's quite effective. And this guy here just went straight for the trade. There we go. So again, at the trading game, you're always going to come out on top as long as you time in those active frames, guys. You know, you won't stagger in response. You'll be able to take your opponent's hits and you'll be able to swing back. And with the Yhorm's Great Machete, because it has so much hyper armor when it does get in those active frames, you're going to get those 2 hits out anyway, because it does cause your opponent to stagger quite effectively after that first blow. So that's an enormous amount of damage, to be honest, guys. At 50 strength, I would probably have a minimum of 50 strength with this weapon, just so you get that 666 AR, even without you know, the weapon art buff. So we'll go straight on to the next match here, guys. And I haven't mentioned the Poise breakpoints here in this video yet. I'll just mention them real briefly because I talk about them pretty much in all of my videos. So if you check out my earlier ones, I really do go into the discussion of the breakpoints using these weapons. But like I mentioned before, with Greataxes, they have the same breakpoints as Ultra Greatswords. So you do need to be above base Poise of 45.81 if you want to be able to consecutively hyper armor against every two-handed R1 in the game, except for Great Hammers. Now, if you want to trade with Great Hammers included, you're going to need to go up to 52, so just remember that. Hey, it's Washing Pole Guy! Okay, so things might get a little bit different here. I have no idea what this guy's doing. Hello, friend. Rightio. Yeah, anyways. Maybe he didn't like fighting someone who could be as passive and reactive as him. You know, a lot of passive and reactive players, believe it or not, actually don't enjoy that playstyle against them. So keep that in mind. I mean, you are wielding a heavier weapon, so obviously you can go aggressive, because you know you're going to come out on top with trades with the breakpoint system behind you, but you don't have to. I mean, if you're fighting a player like that who's super passive and reactive and only wants to hit you, you know, in between your attack or something like that, then you can switch up and be just as passive and reactive as them. And as long as you get your dodging game on point in terms of being able to dodge, hit and run attacks, you're going to piss them off a little bit. So it's good to practice against those playstyles. But yeah, as I mentioned, you know, before, you need to be above 45.81 with a Greataxe or Ultra Greatsword, timing in active frames to be able to tank pretty much everything in the game except for those Great Hammers. But you need 52 against these bad boys, and there's one here. If you want to be able to trade using a Greataxe or an Ultra Greatsword against a Great Hammer, you need 52 base points. So we're not going to be able to trade against this guy, so we really got to be careful here. Try and hit him in between his attacks. Alright, so there we didn't stagger, and the reason being is because, I think I've mentioned this before, the breakpoints change depending on the attack used. So if you're using an R2 and your opponent's using an R1, even with a Great Hammer, you're going to be able to poise through it mainly because you get more hyper armor and more poise frames from your R2 attack. You just have to time it properly. But obviously if the Great Hammer user is using an R2 attack and so are you, then his R2 attack is going to overpower yours and he's going to be able to stagger you. Lucky we survived that. We only need to hit him once more here for the victory. Oh! Oh! Gotta be careful there. It's really all about timing. Alright, so he switched over here to the butcher knife to try and finish us off. So let's see if we can actually get a little bit of HP regen here. There we go. So it's all about timing, guys. Getting your timing correctly, understanding the breakpoint system as well, knowing which attacks you can hyper armor or poise through and which ones you can't. And in that example before, because I used that R2 attack, while my opponent was using his regular R1s with the Great Hammer, I was able to hit him there without stagger. But you know, the breakpoint system really changes depending on the attacks and how much optimization you have behind you in terms of armor poise as well. So really, look, I'm not going to go into an in-depth breakdown of that here because it's quite a complicated system, guys. And to be honest, if you want to really understand how that system works, you're better off just you know, having a look at the videos on YouTube that I've mentioned before that discuss poise post the 1.08 patch, and also having a look at you know, the poise calculator that I mentioned in my previous videos as well, because that actually goes through it in detail of, you know, the breakpoints that you need to be able to tank certain hits using certain weapons. But basically, you know, with a Greataxe or an Ultra Greatsword, my best advice to you is just to stay above 45.81, because you're normally going to be fighting faster weapons. You don't really see much Great Hammers, to be honest. And you're going to be able to comfortably hyper armor trade against all of those faster weapons without stagger, as long as you time in active frames. And you know, even if your opponent is using an Ultra or a Greataxe, if you're optimized with your base poise, you know, more efficiently or more effectively than your opponent is, even if they're using the same weapon, you're going to be able to force them to stagger, and they won't be able to stagger you. But again, it's all up to timing, so keep that in mind. And we might have to switch up here to a faster weapon. There we go. I was saying how much he could actually quick step. That's another really good thing of having a dual wielding setup with a faster weapon in your offhand, is when you have a very competent player using you know, a build that utilizes that quick step function, it's very difficult to hit them with a heavy weapon. Very difficult, because they're usually going to be able to reactively quick step around you and hit and run very effectively. Because it's so easy to dodge these heavier weapon attacks. And again, with that quick step weapon art, they're not going for trades. They're just going to be able to, you know, they're not going to trade against you. They're going to dodge around you. So it's good to have, you know, something like the battle axe in the offhand, just so you can catch those guys when they're quick stepping. So let's see if we can go into one more match here, guys. And like I mentioned before, the weapon arts I've tested this breakpoint system against are just being above 45.81 here, using a Greataxe or an Ultra Greatsword. I mean, you can tank through the Onigiri and Ubidachi weapon art as long as you're timing correctly. The Freed's Great Scythe, the Gotthard Twin Swords, those three are guaranteed. But if you're at the base poise of 50 using an Ultra or a Greataxe, you'll be able to you know, comfortably hyper armor through other weapon arts as well. And it's even easier to do with a Great Hammer, because, you know, they're easier to optimize for, and you can tank weapon, you know, faster weapon arts a lot easier with them. Right, so he's got a similar setup here to what we have, but we haven't unleashed it yet. Caught him there. Trying to use that that's a good catch there. Now I like this guy's little setup there with a faster weapon there in the offhand. Pretty much what we have, except it's a little bit different. So we're going to try and see if we can force this guy into trading with us. There we go. So we forced the trade there. And now he's going to switch over to his faster weapon there. So let's see if we can... Alright, so there he was going for two-handing the Ultra, which would be beneficial to us because it will come out on top. But now he's going again with that dual wielding setup, so we're going to do the same thing here. Gotcha. So there you go. I guess seeing our dual wielding setup there tripped him out a little bit. But yeah, my best advice, guys, is to whip out the Millwood battle axe only when you need it, so people don't expect it. And you'll be fine pretty much with the Yhorm's Great Machete anyway. I mean, with the breakpoints behind you, as long as you're aiming for those trades, where you can bait those trades out of your opponents, you're usually going to come out on top, guys. So, you know, keep that in mind. Active framing is key. I always make this a big point of all my videos because it's essential for this system to work in Dark Souls 3. So keep that in mind. But look, all in all, the Yhorm's Great Machete, in my opinion, is hands down the best Greataxe you can use for a Poise build. Especially our build now, after I respec for strength and vitality. Because once you have at least 50 strength, you're getting phenomenal amounts of damage. I mean, look at that AR, 732 when you're powered up. I mean, that's incredible. If you can force those trades, you're going to be absolutely deadly, guys. But honestly, it has the same weaknesses as any other heavier weapon, especially Greataxes actually, because of the stamina management. One, it's heavy, so obviously your attacks are fairly easily telegraphed, so you have trouble against those faster hit and run tactic players. And number two, stamina management. As you can see there, after 3 hits, we go into negative stamina, so keep that in mind. You're probably not going to be looking for more than 2 hit combos, which is enough because you'll survive the first hit without staggering, and you'll get your 2 hits in, so you only need 1 more hit to finish off your opponent usually. But I do advocate for greater versatility to have something like the Millwood battle axe in your offhand with the Yhorms, because it just opens you up to so much more effectiveness, in my opinion. You're not just relying on one weapon, you have the versatility of these 2 weapons at your disposal, and I think it's essential, to be honest, because you need versatility in the meta. And as good as you are with, I mean, you can be the best player you know, out of everyone using this new Poise breakpoint system to your advantage, but when you have someone who, you know, is really good at those hit and run tactics, etc., you really need something else, guys. You really do. So I would advocate having something that can catch those players off guard, and having a dual wielding setup. Even, you know, it doesn't have to be the Millwood battle axe. You know, I do think that it really opens the possibilities of these particular setups a little bit more. Anyways, guys, I'm going to wrap up the video there, just under half an hour. You know, all in all, I think the Yhorm's Great Machete is an awesome Greataxe, probably the best Greataxe you can use for your Poise builds if you're specializing in strength. And you know, I'll be posting up regular content here as always, guys, so keep that in mind. Regular videos discussing these breakpoints and setups. I want to thank all my subscribers real quickly for subscribing to my content. Thank you for watching and enjoying my clips. So shout out to all of you guys, and you know, if you like this video, hit the like button. If you're enjoying my content, please subscribe, and as always, guys, thank you for watching.